Good morning, everyone. We are continuing here in the words of the Beis Halevi and his Maimah Bitachon, and he's speaking about a very important point, and that is once that a person has exhausted all of the possibilities of hishtadlus, we did what we're supposed to do down here in this world to have our part, so to speak, and it doesn't work. The parnasa, the livelihood doesn't come. The child is not born. The shidduch is not forthcoming. The healing doesn't take place and a person is still lying and writhing, perhaps in pain or sickness or ailments, Rahman al-Islam. What does a person do at that point? You went to all the doctors, you went to all of the job interviews, you spoke to all the shadchanim, you did everything you possibly could in the realm of hishtadlus. What do you do at this point? Says the Beis Halevi, Shuv nifter me'achiyuv halazeh, you are now pater, you're exempt from the obligation of expending any more effort and hishtadlus. V'yesh lo liftach b'Hashem, the only thing that you have an obligation to do at that moment is to be beiteach, is to rely upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He is going to provide you and supply you with whatever you need. And the Beis Halevi is referring to the moment in life when a person comes to that realization, there is nothing else for me or anybody else to do in this world. Everything is in the hands of the Ribbono Shel Olam. Of course, in the very beginning, HaKol Bidei Shemayim, everything is in Hashem's hands. Of course, in the moment that I embarked on a path of Ishtadlus, I have to recognize entirely that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that's going to make it work and affect it and bring about the bracha to my life. Of course, that's an obvious thing that we're discussing over here. Nevertheless, we have an obligation of Ishtadlus, as we pointed out before. Whether it's the tax, whether it is the punishment, whether it is the decree, we have no choice. But now HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings a person to a place where they themselves realize it's not about the Ishtadlus. It's not about the efforts that I'm going to make. It's not about this duplicitous type of relationship that I have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where I have to do one thing, and really HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pulling the strings behind the scenes entirely. Rather, at this point, v'yesh lo liftach b'Hashem, I put all of my faith on you, Ribbono Shel Olam. I put all of my bitachon, my reliance in you. I don't even think about the doctors. I don't think about the shadchanim. I don't think about my own efforts. I don't think about my business savvy mind. It has nothing at all to do with anyone that's here in this world. It's all you, Ribbono Shel Olam. And perhaps when a person gets to that point in their journeys and exploration of the world of Bitachon, and they begin to realize that HaKol Bidei Shemayim, literally everything is in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's nothing that I can do on my own. It's all Hashem. And a person gives up all of themselves to the Ribbono Shel Olam at that moment to trust solely in Him. That's when the bracha is going to come. That's when the siyata d'shemaya will come their way. That's when the children will come. That's when the shidduchim will come. That's when the parnasa will come. That's when the health will come. Because at that moment in the person's life, when they realize, I have nothing else in this world besides HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the tefillahs are so much more powerful. The yearnings to be close to Hashem is that much stronger and greater. And the belief that we have that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can answer our tefillahs is something that is an enormous schus for a person, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu then will bring down that bracha that the person desires. The very powerful ma'aseh of a couple that was married for many, many, many years, and they were childless. And they went, yes, to all the doctors, and not a single doctor was able to help them. They went to all of the Gedolei Yisrael, the greatest rabbis of the generation, for the brachas. The brachas did not come true. They went from America to Eretz Yisrael. They went touring around to all of the holiest sites, all the kavarim, all of the graves of previous generations of tzaddikim that were known to bring about segulas and wondrous things. And they davened and davened and davened, and still they were not answered. And after 15 or 20 years of marriage, of having no children, they were resigned to the reality that they're not going to have a child of their own. So they began looking into the prospect of adoption, And of course, they were frum Yid, and they wanted to make sure that the child that they adopted was also a Jew. It would just make things much easier over time without having to convert that child. And they found an organization in Eretz Yisrael that was an adoption agency that dealt with only Jewish children that were put up for adoption. And so they called the agency and they put their name on a waiting list, and they were told that when we have a baby that's up for adoption, you'll be able to get to Eretz Yisrael quickly. You'll come and you'll sign all the paperwork, and we'll send you home with your own baby in your arms. And they were waiting anxiously for the day that it would come. And a few months later, they receive a telephone call, and the woman on the other line says she's calling from this particular adoption agency, and there is a young woman who is having a baby in a week or two, and she wants to give up her child for adoption to a nice Jewish family. They were ecstatic. They booked their flights. They come to Eretz Yisrael. As they land, they get a phone call, and the phone call is that the baby was born the night before. Please come immediately to the office and sign all the paperwork that is necessary so you can bring home your own baby boy to America with you. And they go to the office and they begin filling out all the papers. It's a long application process. And the husband is signing and filling out one line after the other until he gets stuck on the following question. And the question is, do you promise that you will love this child more than anyone else that you love in the world? And the husband is looking at that question. And his wife sees that he pauses and she says, "Dear, what's the matter? Why don't you continue writing?" And he said, "Look at this question. Do you promise to love this child more than you love anyone else in this world?" She said, "Of course. What's the problem? Say yes." He said, "How can I say yes? How could I love anyone more than I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How could I say that I'm going to love this child more than I love Hashem himself? I can't say yes." So he went to the woman in charge and he said, "Listen, I'm ready to sign everything else on this paper, but you're asking me a question that's impossible for me to answer in the affirmative. You're asking me if I'll love this child more than I love anyone else. I love Hashem more than I love anyone. I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I will not be able to love this child more than I love Hashem." So the woman said, it's okay, just write yes. Just write yes over there. You want the baby, don't you?" He said, I can't lie about my love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I can't sign yes. She said, "But if you don't finish signing the application, you're not going to walk home with this baby." He said, "What do you want me to do? That I won't walk home with the baby, but I'm not going to say that I love anything or anyone more than Hashem." And his wife is watching the conversation go on, and he looks at his wife with a broken heart and sadness in his eyes, realizing that if he doesn't say yes, they're not going to have a child, and all their hopes, their final hopes of children, dashed against the rocks. And his wife says to her husband, "It's okay. Your love of Hashem is more important. I understand. If you can't write it and you can't sign it, then so be it. We'll walk home without a child in our arms." And they turn in the application and they walk out of the office without a child. And as they close the doors to the office and they're standing on the staircase leading back down to the street, the woman suddenly turns her eyes towards heaven and she says, "Ribono shel olam, you know that there's nothing more than we want to bring a baby into this world to raise him to Torah and to mitzvahs. You know that there's nothing more that we want to be able to hold a precious neshama in our arms, to be able to raise him in the right way of Torah and of mitzvahs, to hear the cries of a child, to hear the laughter of a child, to be able to change the diapers, to be able to have a mishpach, a family that will be a nachas to you, Ribbono Shel Olam. You know that that's all that we want. The doctors cannot help, the brachas did not come true, and now our last-ditch effort to adopt a child is not going to work either. Ribbono Shel Olam, we have nobody else in the world to rely upon and turn to besides you. Please, I'm begging you. Give us the schos of having a child. And there on the staircase in front of the adoption agency, the woman cried her heart out for a child like she never cried before to her Father in heaven, who she was boiteach in completely. And 9 months later, her and her husband, back in America in their home, welcomed a healthy baby boy into the world. Says the Beis Halevi, when you get to that point and you realize nobody else can help you with anything, it's hakol b'yidei Shemayim, it's all in the hands of Hashem. Just be boiteach in the Ribbono Shel Olam that He can do anything. He's l'mayla min hateva, above all the laws of nature. In the schus of that bitachon, in the merit of reaching that madrega, that level, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu answer all of our tefillos. Have an amazing and a wonderful day.